Being ignored by someone you love can be deeply painful. Whether it's a partner, a close friend, or a family member, the silence that follows feels overwhelming. You may feel rejected, confused, or even question your worth. It's easy to let those emotions drive your reactions, perhaps wanting to lash out, withdraw, or even seek validation. However, there's a different way to approach these situations. Stoicism, particularly the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, offers us a powerful guide to handling emotional pain with calm and clarity. Instead of reacting impulsively or being consumed by frustration, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts and actions. By embracing Stoic wisdom, we can shift our mindset, find inner peace, and navigate the challenges of being ignored with grace. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know how you approach these situations. Chapter 1. Understanding your emotions. When we are ignored by someone we care about, the emotional impact can be intense. It's a feeling that can bring about a wave of negative emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, or confusion. In some cases, it may even lead to feelings of rejection or self-doubt. You might wonder, why am I being treated this way? What did I do wrong? These questions can become overwhelming and make it even harder to navigate the situation. But the first step in handling this emotional turmoil is to understand and acknowledge your feelings without letting them control you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, teaches us an essential principle that can guide us through such emotional pain. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What he's suggesting is that while we cannot control the actions of others, such as being ignored by someone important to us, we can control how we respond to these actions. The emotional distress we feel is an internal reaction, and we have the ability to manage it. The challenge is not to ignore or suppress these emotions, but to allow ourselves to feel them fully, without judgment. So often, we are conditioned to push emotions aside, especially the uncomfortable ones, like anger or sadness, because we believe they are negative. But Stoicism offers us a different approach. Instead of ignoring or condemning our emotions, we are taught to accept them as part of being human. By acknowledging them, we take the first step toward mastering them. We become aware of how they arise, how they affect us, and how we can choose to respond in a more measured way. To better manage your emotions, it's helpful to first observe them without reacting impulsively. Take a step back and recognize what you are feeling. Are you angry because you feel disrespected? Sad because you feel rejected? Confused because you don't understand why the other person is acting this way? Being able to name your emotions is a powerful tool in gaining control over them. Once you identify what you are feeling, you gain more awareness of why these emotions are surfacing. One of the most significant aspects of Stoicism is realizing that emotions do not have to dictate our actions. When someone ignores us, the automatic reaction might be to lash out, demand answers, or act defensively. But when we recognize that we have control over our emotions, we can pause and avoid these knee-jerk reactions. For example, if you feel anger rising within you, rather than allowing that anger to fuel your actions, you can take a step back, breathe, and decide how you want to respond. This pause gives you the opportunity to choose actions that are aligned with your values, not actions driven by raw emotion. By mastering your emotions, you stop them from controlling your behavior and instead use them as valuable signals that guide you. Emotions are not inherently bad or wrong. They are simply information about how you are reacting to the world around you. But how you handle them is what matters. When you take the time to reflect on your feelings and then choose a response that is measured, you gain a sense of empowerment. Instead of feeling helpless or overwhelmed by emotional reactions, you begin to realize that you have the power to navigate even the most difficult situations. This process of self-awareness and emotional mastery doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice, self-compassion, and patience. The more you practice this skill, the more you'll find that your emotional responses become less intense and more manageable. It may not be easy, especially in the heat of the moment when emotions are high, but every time you take a step back, acknowledge what you are feeling, and choose a thoughtful response, you build greater resilience. In the end, Marcus Aurelius's wisdom offers us a way to reclaim our emotional power. We don't have to be slaves to our emotions, nor should we suppress them. Instead, we should allow ourselves to experience them fully, understand them, and then decide how we want to act. By practicing this, you can navigate moments of being ignored or any other emotional challenge with greater calm, clarity, and strength. This Stoic approach empowers us to respond with grace and wisdom, even in the face of discomfort and adversity. Chapter 2: The Power of Perspective. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism is that while we cannot control what happens to us, we always have control over how we respond. This idea is essential when dealing with emotionally challenging situations, such as when a loved one ignores us. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing such behavior as a personal attack or a reflection of our worth. We may feel rejected, hurt, or frustrated, questioning why they are ignoring us. However, Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, reminds us that our response to external events is what truly matters. He writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This powerful idea can shift our entire perspective on the situation, allowing us to view it as an opportunity for growth rather than a source of suffering. When someone we care about withdraws their attention or communication, it's natural to feel pain. We might want to blame ourselves or assume that we've done something wrong. But Stoicism invites us to see beyond our immediate emotional reactions and understand that we don't have control over others' actions. The only thing we have control over is how we respond to the situation. Rather than letting the experience take us down a path of frustration and self-doubt, we can choose to view it as a challenge, a moment that can help us grow stronger emotionally and mentally. Instead of focusing solely on the hurt or frustration of being ignored, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This question redirects your mind from the negative emotions surrounding the situation to a more constructive approach. Rather than viewing yourself as a victim of someone else's behavior, you start to see the situation as an opportunity for personal development. Maybe this is a chance for you to practice patience, acceptance, or understanding. Perhaps it's a time to reflect on your own needs in the relationship and assess whether those needs are being communicated clearly. The Stoic approach encourages us to look inward and ask how we can improve our responses, whether it's in terms of emotional regulation or communication. This shift in perspective helps move us from a place of helplessness to one of empowerment. It allows us to see that even in moments of emotional distress, we can still make choices that align with our values and character. Stoicism teaches that life will always present obstacles, but those obstacles don't have to define us. What defines us is how we choose to act in the face of adversity. When we see a situation as an obstacle to be overcome, rather than a personal attack, we take back control. We choose to respond with dignity and grace, regardless of how others behave. Moreover, this new perspective can help us avoid the emotional spiral that often comes with feeling ignored. When we feel overlooked, it's easy to ruminate on the situation, becoming more upset with each passing moment. We might want to lash out, demand answers, or withdraw further. But by choosing to reframe the situation, we avoid becoming trapped in our emotions. Instead of focusing on the perceived rejection, we focus on how we can respond thoughtfully in a way that reflects our highest principles. One of the core values of Stoicism is living in accordance with virtue, and in situations like being ignored, we can still uphold our integrity. For example, instead of reacting impulsively, we can take the time to understand why the person might be withdrawing and whether we can address any issues calmly and respectfully. If the person is ignoring us out of frustration or because they need space, Stoicism encourages us to allow them the time they need without taking it personally or reacting out of hurt. By responding with patience and understanding, we not only stay true to our values, but also foster an environment where communication can open up again. Shifting your perspective in these moments transforms the experience from something passive, where you feel like a victim, into something active, where you take charge of your emotional response. You start to see that the situation doesn't have to dictate your mood or your behavior. Instead, you choose to rise above it, seeing the obstacle as a stepping stone to becoming a more self-aware, composed, and virtuous individual. It's not always easy, but with practice, this mindset becomes a powerful tool in navigating life's challenges with grace. By embracing the Stoic concept that what stands in the way becomes the way, you empower yourself to transform difficult emotional experiences into opportunities for growth. In doing so, you gain the strength to not only handle being ignored, but also to handle any other adversity with resilience and wisdom. This perspective frees you from being held hostage by the actions of others and puts you back in control of your own emotional well-being. Chapter 3. Detach from the outcome. One of the primary sources of frustration when someone ignores you is attachment to the outcome. It's human nature to expect certain responses from the people we care about, especially in emotionally charged situations. When we don't receive the reaction we anticipate, whether it's an apology, an explanation, or simply a sign that they care, it can trigger feelings of disappointment, hurt, and frustration. These emotions arise because we've attached our sense of resolution or validation to a specific outcome. But the wisdom of Stoicism offers a powerful way to shift this perspective. Detach from the outcome. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, shares a profound insight. Don't hanker after what you don't have. Rather, think of what you have and what you would have been if you hadn't had it. This is an invitation to stop fixating on what you think you need from the situation, and instead, focus on what you already have and the strength you can cultivate by accepting the present moment as it is. When we attach ourselves too strongly to a desired outcome, we allow that attachment to dictate our emotional state. For instance, if you expect your loved one to apologize or acknowledge their behavior, and they don't, it can send you into a spiral of hurt or frustration. But Stoicism teaches us that this attachment to a specific outcome is a source of unnecessary suffering. By focusing on the outcome we desire, whether it's reconciliation, an apology, or a particular type of reaction from the other person, we give away our emotional power. We place our happiness and peace in someone else's hands. When we do this, we are not in control. We cannot control how others act, and more importantly, we cannot control their timing or their willingness to acknowledge our feelings. This is where Stoicism helps. By detaching from the need for a specific reaction, we gain back control of our emotional state. Instead of fixating on the response you expect from the other person, Stoicism encourages you to focus on your own actions, intentions, and behaviors. In every situation, you can control how you choose to respond, how you align your actions with your values, and how you maintain your inner peace despite external circumstances. For example, if your loved one ignores you, instead of reacting emotionally, you can choose to express how you feel calmly and assertively, or decide to give them the space they need while respecting your own boundaries. By aligning with your principles, such as patience, understanding, or even forgiveness, you allow your behavior to reflect who you are rather than being driven by external validation. Letting go of attachment to the outcome means shifting from a mindset of expectation to one of acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean resigning yourself to being ignored or mistreated, but rather acknowledging that while you can't control the other person's actions, you can control how you carry yourself in the face of it. This shift helps prevent the emotional turbulence that often arises from unmet expectations. Instead of feeling disappointed when the desired outcome doesn't materialize, you can feel empowered by your ability to maintain your composure and act in alignment with your values, regardless of how the other person behaves. Detaching from the outcome also helps release unnecessary suffering. When we focus on a specific outcome, we often overlook the present moment and all the other elements of the situation that may offer growth, understanding, or peace. By relinquishing the need for a particular outcome, we free ourselves from the grip of frustration and open ourselves up to the possibility of responding to the situation with clarity, wisdom, and resilience. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches that the only thing within our control is how we choose to react. By shifting our focus from expecting certain reactions from others to maintaining our integrity and aligning with our principles, we regain control over our emotional state. In doing so, we not only reduce our suffering, but also cultivate emotional resilience and inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. When we let go of attachment to the outcome, we can face even the most challenging situations, like being ignored, without losing our sense of self or peace of mind. Chapter 4. Maintain your integrity. When we face emotional turmoil, particularly in relationships, it's easy to allow our emotions to dictate our actions. Whether it's feeling hurt, frustrated, or rejected, the impulse to react in anger or withdrawal can be overwhelming. In these moments, we may say or do things that we regret later, which only adds to the tension and emotional distance between us and the other person. However, Stoicism, and specifically the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, offers a powerful antidote to these knee-jerk reactions. Maintain your integrity. Marcus Aurelius wisely advises, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This simple yet profound statement encourages us to embody our principles and values, regardless of the external circumstances. When your loved one ignores you, it's an opportunity to demonstrate who you are at your core and to show your strength of character by choosing to act with calmness and dignity rather than reacting impulsively to their behavior. By acting with integrity, you rise above the emotional turbulence of the moment, and instead, you anchor yourself in your own values and sense of self. In the face of being ignored, it's natural to feel a surge of emotion. You might feel rejected, unimportant, or even angry at the lack of communication. Yet, reacting out of these emotions, whether through harsh words, passive-aggressive behavior, or even withdrawing into silence, rarely leads to a constructive outcome. Instead of letting these feelings control your actions, focus on what you can control: your behavior and your response to the situation. By responding with integrity, you avoid being swept up by the emotional currents. Integrity in this context means acting in alignment with your values, not allowing your emotional state to dictate your behavior. It's about staying true to who you are and reflecting your best self, even when it's difficult. If you value patience, for instance, you can choose to remain calm, wait for the right time to communicate, and avoid impulsive reactions. If respect is important to you, you may decide to express your feelings in a way that is thoughtful and considerate, rather than lashing out. If kindness and understanding are part of your core, you may choose to give your loved ones space, respecting their needs while maintaining your composure. Responding in this manner requires self-control and emotional awareness. It's easy to give in to the urge to react when you feel hurt, but the true strength lies in choosing how you respond, rather than being ruled by your emotions. By maintaining your integrity, you not only protect your own emotional well-being, but also model the kind of behavior you want to see in your relationships. In the long run, acting with integrity fosters mutual respect and trust, as others will recognize and appreciate your ability to remain grounded, even in challenging situations. When you maintain your integrity, you create an environment where open and honest communication can flourish. Rather than escalating the situation by reacting in ways that might add fuel to the fire, your composed and thoughtful response encourages a more constructive dialogue. By staying true to yourself, you create the space for the other person to reflect on their behavior and perhaps come to a place of understanding on their own. Moreover, acting with integrity when you are ignored helps preserve your self-respect. It reinforces the belief that your actions are not dependent on the approval or behavior of others. You are not acting for a specific response. You are acting because it is the right thing to do, and because it is aligned with the person you strive to be. This commitment to integrity allows you to weather the emotional storms of life with greater resilience, knowing that your peace and self-worth are not contingent on external circumstances. In relationships, maintaining your integrity also serves as a model for others. When you consistently act in line with your values, even when faced with emotional challenges, you set a standard for those around you. You show that it is possible to face difficulties without compromising one's character or principles. This not only strengthens your relationships, but also enhances your own sense of self-respect and inner peace. Ultimately, maintaining your integrity in times of emotional turmoil, such as when your loved one ignores you, is a path to personal growth and emotional resilience. It ensures that you stay true to your values, make decisions based on principle rather than impulse, and cultivate a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on how others behave. By doing so, you demonstrate your strength of character and set the foundation for deeper, more authentic connections in the future. Chapter 5. Communicate with compassion. When a loved one ignores us, the emotional response can be overwhelming. Silence often breeds confusion, hurt, and frustration, and left unaddressed, these feelings can quickly turn into resentment. Stoicism teaches us that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control our own responses, particularly our responses to emotional pain. Instead of allowing the silence to fester and grow into something negative, Stoicism encourages us to communicate with compassion. While emotional discipline is central to Stoic philosophy, it is equally important to express our emotions honestly and openly. Marcus Aurelius believed that we are all interconnected, and that understanding one another's perspectives is a cornerstone of healthy relationships. Stoicism doesn't advocate for suppressing emotions or bottling them up, but rather for dealing with them in a constructive and meaningful way. If you are hurt by being ignored, expressing your feelings is an essential step in healing the situation. However, how you express those feelings is just as important as what you express. Rather than lashing out in anger or resentment, approach the situation with calmness and compassion. Compassionate communication is about creating a dialogue that invites understanding rather than defensiveness. When your loved one ignores you, it's easy to feel neglected or unimportant, and these emotions can lead to impulsive reactions. The natural instinct may be to accuse, blame, or make the other person feel guilty. However, Stoicism teaches us to respond with measured clarity, focusing on how we feel without casting judgment on the other person's intentions. Instead of saying, "You always ignore me and it hurts," you could say, "I feel hurt when there is silence between us, and I'd like to understand what's going on." This approach opens the door to understanding, rather than closing it off with blame. By communicating with compassion, you invite your loved one to share their perspective as well. Instead of assuming their actions are deliberate or malicious, you acknowledge that there may be reasons for their behavior that you are unaware of. This doesn't mean excusing their actions, but it does create space for empathy and understanding. Often, people's actions are influenced by their own struggles or emotions that may have little to do with you. By recognizing this and communicating with compassion, you shift the focus from confrontation to connection. This can help bridge the emotional gap created by silence and lead to a resolution that fosters mutual respect and healing. Effective communication also involves listening. Compassionate communication is a two-way street, and it's essential to give the other person the opportunity to express themselves. Stoicism teaches us to cultivate patience and understanding, which are key to becoming a better listener. By truly hearing the other person's perspective without rushing to judgment or defensiveness, you create a space for genuine dialogue. This fosters a sense of trust and emotional safety in the relationship, allowing both parties to express their feelings without fear of criticism or rejection. It's important to remember that when communicating, your goal should not be to win the conversation or prove your point, but to resolve the situation with respect and understanding. When we approach difficult conversations with compassion, we allow for a more honest and open exchange of emotions. This does not guarantee that the other person will respond positively, but it does ensure that you are acting in line with your values, maintaining your integrity, and offering a chance for healing. Compassionate communication can be difficult, especially when emotions are raw and the silence feels painful. But it is through these courageous conversations that we can strengthen relationships, resolve misunderstandings, and deepen our emotional bonds. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that our relationships are an essential part of our well-being, and communication is the foundation of any healthy connection. By choosing to express your feelings with compassion, you break down the walls of silence, allowing for empathy and understanding to take root. In the end, communicating with compassion is not about avoiding conflict or denying your feelings. It's about expressing your emotions in a way that encourages connection and resolution. When you take the time to articulate your feelings calmly and with care, you set the stage for deeper, more meaningful conversations that strengthen the foundation of your relationships. Compassionate communication helps not only to resolve conflict, but also to prevent it from escalating, creating space for growth, understanding, and harmony in your connections. Chapter 6. Practice self-reflection and growth. When someone you care about ignores you, it's natural to feel hurt and confused. You may want to blame them or assume the worst about your relationship, but Stoicism urges us to shift the focus inward. Marcus Aurelius teaches, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This wisdom reminds us that reacting out of anger or hurt rarely leads to positive outcomes, and instead, we have the opportunity to turn this painful moment into a catalyst for personal growth. One of the most powerful ways to handle being ignored is to engage in self-reflection. Instead of fixating on what the other person did or didn't do, consider what you can learn from the experience. Ask yourself, how can I grow from this? Is there something in my own behavior that needs to change? Am I setting healthy boundaries? Is there something in my communication or expectations that I need to address? These questions allow you to break free from the cycle of blame and shift your energy toward personal growth. The benefit of this approach is twofold. First, it empowers you. By focusing on what you can control, your responses, behavior, and mindset, you regain agency in a situation where you may otherwise feel helpless. This practice can also help you develop emotional resilience and strengthen your character. Instead of letting your emotions dictate your actions, you become the one in control, making decisions based on your values and principles. Over time, this helps you become more self-aware and better equipped to handle emotional challenges in the future. However, there are some potential downsides to this approach. The process of self-reflection can sometimes feel overwhelming, especially when emotions are running high. It's easy to be too hard on yourself or become consumed by the idea that you are to blame for everything. While it's essential to reflect on your actions, it's also important to remember that not everything is within your control. The other person's behavior, especially if it's habitual, might not be something you can change or fix. Overanalyzing yourself can sometimes lead to self-doubt or guilt, which may hinder your emotional healing. Despite this, practicing self-reflection encourages emotional maturity. By looking inward, you give yourself the opportunity to address any patterns in your own behavior that might contribute to the dynamic. Are you too dependent on the approval of others? Do you struggle with boundaries? Do you take on too much emotional labor in relationships? These are important questions to ask yourself, and exploring them allows you to create healthier, more balanced connections moving forward. Self-reflection also promotes better communication. As you gain clarity about your own feelings and reactions, you'll be in a better position to express them effectively to others. This prevents misunderstandings and encourages more honest and open conversations. As a result, you can avoid the pitfall of assuming that your loved one is intentionally trying to hurt you, and instead, open the door to dialogue that can clear up confusion and deepen your connection. In summary, practicing self-reflection and growth in response to being ignored is a powerful way to regain control over your emotions and improve your relationships. It shifts the focus from external circumstances to internal development, allowing you to emerge from the situation with greater insight, strength, and emotional maturity. While it can be challenging at times, the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks, helping you become a more resilient, self-aware person, capable of handling life's inevitable challenges with grace. Chapter 7. Let go and move. On one of the most challenging aspects of being ignored by someone you care about is the emotional weight it carries. The more you dwell on the situation, the more it eats away at your peace of mind, leaving you feeling bitter and helpless. However, Stoicism offers us a liberating perspective on how to handle such painful experiences. Marcus Aurelius wisely reminds us, don't worry about things outside your control. This lesson holds immense power, especially when we find ourselves in situations where we cannot change the actions of others, such as being ignored by a loved one. When someone ignores us, it's easy to get caught in a spiral of frustration, confusion, and self-doubt. We may replay the situation over and over in our minds, questioning what we did wrong or why they acted the way they did. But the truth is, some things are simply beyond our control. People's actions, moods, and responses are theirs to own, and no matter how much we wish we could change them, we cannot. This realization is incredibly freeing once we accept it. Instead of holding on to resentment, frustration, or the hope that things will change, we can release the emotional grip these feelings have on us. Letting go doesn't mean we stop caring about the relationship, nor does it mean that we disregard the hurt we've experienced. Rather, it means we stop allowing the situation to dominate our emotional state. By holding on to anger, sadness, or confusion, we're essentially giving the other person power over our feelings, and in doing so, we keep ourselves trapped in a cycle of emotional suffering. As Marcus Aurelius teaches, the key is to focus on what is within our control, our own thoughts and responses. We can choose how to react, and, more importantly, when to let go. Letting go is an act of self-care. It is about recognizing that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how much emotional energy we devote to a situation that isn't serving us. When we choose to let go of the emotional weight tied to being ignored, we create space for healing. Holding on to negativity often prevents us from moving forward, both emotionally and mentally. By choosing to move on, we free ourselves from the shackles of hurt, bitterness, and confusion. This doesn't mean we have to forget or ignore our feelings. It simply means we no longer allow them to define us or our happiness. One powerful aspect of letting go is that it clears the path for growth. When we're no longer weighed down by unresolved emotions, we open up room for self-reflection and personal development. As we learn to detach ourselves from the need for validation or understanding from others, we gain a greater sense of peace and emotional independence. Letting go allows us to move forward in a healthy, grounded way, regardless of how the other person chooses to behave. It enables us to live authentically, without being tethered to someone else's actions. In relationships, letting go can sometimes be mistaken for giving up or giving in. However, in Stoic philosophy, it is about recognizing the limits of our control and making the conscious decision to prioritize our well-being. We can still care for the person, but we no longer allow their actions, or lack thereof, to dictate our emotional state. In the process, we become more resilient, more self-reliant, and more in control of our emotional lives. By choosing to let go, we also create space for potential healing in the relationship, if it's meant to be. Often, when we release our emotional attachment to a specific outcome, we allow the natural course of events to unfold. Sometimes, people return to us after a period of silence, and sometimes they don't. Either way, we are better equipped to handle the outcome with grace, knowing that our peace of mind isn't dependent on another person's actions. Ultimately, letting go is an empowering decision. It's about taking back control over your emotional life, freeing yourself from the burden of resentment, and making room for new growth. By embracing this Stoic practice, you allow yourself to heal, move forward, and live more fully in the present moment. As Marcus Aurelius so wisely put it, we should not worry about what is outside our control. By letting go of the need for resolution or closure, we step into a space of peace, healing, and the freedom to move on with grace. Being ignored by a loved one can feel overwhelming, but Stoicism offers us a way to rise above the emotional turmoil with grace and clarity. By embracing Marcus Aurelius's teachings, we learn that while we can't control others' actions, we have full power over our reactions. Detaching from outcomes, staying true to our values, and acting with integrity helps us preserve our peace and emotional well-being. By practicing these Stoic principles, we not only heal ourselves, but also build stronger, more resilient relationships. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you plan to apply Stoic wisdom in your own relationships. Together, let's grow stronger through these challenges.